Integrity is everything. Our way of life in this country rises and falls on the integrity of our leaders and the integrity of our infrastructure. Because integrity impacts everything, this is the Integrity Podcast, powered by Exo, hosted by Zachary Oliphant.
So we've been talking a lot about leadership, and today I've kind of got a fun opportunity. Some of our guys in the office pulled together a couple questions that I'm seeing for the first time, and really just kind of want to put these out there and give you my kind of unpolished thoughts. So I'll probably trip on myself a little bit as I process these and work through them. But hopefully you'll find some good insights in these and maybe something you could take back to your business. Or maybe something that you could communicate to me that you think I'm doing wrong and I can learn from it. So, but anyway, we'll see how these go. Really, the first question is, how do you create a compelling vision that inspires and motivates your team? That's not an easy question. I think for me, kind of my overarching vision, what I communicate to our team is just we got to get a little bit better every day. And that may sound really simple, but that's what I try to preach to our team. Fundamentally, big things don't happen overnight. Big things are the net result of a lot of little decisions and a lot of little improvements that lead to a big result. And so for me, I don't want to put so much pressure on our team that we've got this huge strategic goal, right? We want to double in size. We want to triple in size. We want to attack this market. Those are big, hard things for some people to compartmentalize and understand. But what people can understand are what are the decisions I'm making every day as part of my job or part of my life? And how do I just try to make a couple more good decisions or little decisions that positively affect our business? And if I can make a little bit of change every day that's having a positive impact, on the aggregate, that's a big change. Because if you have hundreds of people making small positive changes, that's thousands of little changes that are positive to your business, and you aggregate those over every day and every week and every month and every quarter, you'll look back and go, man, look what we accomplished. And you'll also understand you didn't do all that at one day, one time, and it wasn't some poster you stuck up on the wall. It was a lot of little decisions that were made that really drove the vision of the company. And so for me, that's how I think that I lead as a member of our team, and how I can lead and give our team a vision on how we're going to be successful. And I try to separate the vision from the strategy, right? How we're going to accomplish something, what is our vision, how we're going to step through and accomplish something is very different than what is the strategy of what we're trying to accomplish. And for me, I try to separate those two items, and it seems to work. So really the next question that's asked of me here is, how do you cultivate emotional intelligence in yourself, and how do you identify it in others and leverage it? This is a real interesting one because fundamentally, I'm at an age where I'm managing and leading people that are 20 years my senior or more, and 20 years my junior and more, right? So I'm kind of right in the middle of our workforce. And certainly, generationally, people are very different. How they communicate, how they compartmentalize an issue, what bothers them, what drives them, and so what I have found for me, it's you have to really dig in at the individual level, right? You have to connect and build relationships with people to understand how are they being driven. What are their challenges? How do you remove those barriers from them? And whether it's someone that's been in a career and in their career for 30 or 40 years, there's still roadblocks and challenges to their professional development and what they're trying to accomplish. Or whether it's someone that's brand new to an organization, that it's their first time being part of an organization, they're trying to navigate, what does that mean to be part of this team? And how do I stand out? And how do I grow in my career? And how do I do the things that are going to make me successful? I once heard, I don't know if this was Tony Dungy or not, but I think it was. But it's leadership's not about being the boss. It's about taking care of those who you're in charge of. And I think that's really well said, because it's the people that work for you, or the people that give a huge portion of their life and dedicate their life to your business and the business that you're trying to grow and run, are dedicating a huge portion of their life. And you have to take that responsibility seriously. And you have to be empathetic and sympathetic to those people. You have to develop those people. And you have to be willing to listen and engage and build relationships with those people. That certainly doesn't mean every day is going to be easy. Certainly doesn't mean every conversation you have is going to be perfect. But if you're willing to work at it every day, I've found that you can grow as a leader, and your team can grow, and they can grow as leaders. And ultimately, that's what you want to see. You want to be able to build a team of people that can replace you. And if you've done that, I feel like you've been successful. And that's really what I strive for every day. So the next question here is, how do you cultivate authenticity and lead with integrity and purpose? This one for me, I think, is pretty simple. I just try to be who I am every day. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I try to be the same person every day. I've had the great fortune of having businesses that have grown and succeeded. I've had the great fortune of being surrounded by a lot of fantastic leaders and people and great mentors. And I've probably been lucky along that path. But I think the probably overarching thing for me that I work at tremendously, no matter where I've been in my career, is to try to be the same every day and try to be consistent every day, and not try to be, one way for one person, another way for an executive, another way for one of our guys in the field. I just try to be me every single day, and that's sometimes not easy. Sometimes I'm sure that frustrates people that, maybe want me to be different than who I am. Maybe I'm not being open enough some days, or I'm being too open other days. But for me, I try to use as my North Star just making decisions that make me sleep good at night, hold myself to a high degree of integrity, and try to be as authentic as I can with people. And sometimes that means you're hard, or you have to have a hard conversation with folks. And sometimes that means you get to cheerlead and pat people on the back. But certainly, I think if you're trying to not be the person who you really are, you can only hide for so long. And so if you're trying to be someone that you don't believe in, or you're trying to do things that you can't get behind, at some point, someone will see behind that curtain, and they see who you truly are. So just be yourself every day. That doesn't mean you have to be like someone else. Just be yourself. I mean, there's so many fantastic people out there, and really the beauty of the differences that everyone brings, either to an organization or to a team. Those differences are what make us unique, and those differences are what make things better. So don't feel obligated to be the way you see somebody on YouTube or TikTok or on the news or some other business leader. Just be you. And I think if you just are who you are, and you work on the things that you believe you need to work on, or people around you, see that you could work on and improve and be willing to listen. I think if you do those things, you'll continue to be authentic, and you'll come across as an authentic leader. So here's the next question. It's about innovation and creativity. It's, how do you foster a culture of innovation and creativity in your organization? That's a really interesting one. So we've got a lot of highly technical people in our business. And what I've found in my career is folks that are highly technical, usually pretty creative. I mean, it's almost the same part of their brain. That an engineer, a lot of people think of engineers, these very regimented people, that it's all about perfection of the numbers. But what you find when you spend a lot of time with folks that are engineers or technicians or welders or what have you, a lot of those folks are really artists, right? And they've just selected a kind of traditional craft like an engineering or welding or those sorts of things. I can tell you some of the best ideas in our organization is because you give people the space and the room to be creative. We've had the great fortune of creating and innovating several patents in our organization. None of those were created or invented in a vacuum. Those were all a problem that we had folks around the table saying, how in the world do we solve this complicated problem for our client? And those things were generated and created by great ideas from all levels of our organization. So you have to give people the space to breathe, to innovate. You have to give people the space to breathe, to be creative. And that doesn't mean you're always going to align with their ideas, right? I mean, there's been some crazy stuff people have thrown out in our organization. And I thought it was crazy, and lo and behold, it wasn't. It was a great idea. And I needed to check myself saying, hey, it seems like a crazy idea. And it wasn't. It ends up being a great, fantastic idea that drives our business in the right direction. Now, on the flip side of that, you've got to understand, like, what are you trying to get out of your business, and what are the priorities, right? I've also seen organizations where you have so many brilliant, creative people that they can't coalesce around a handful of good ideas that they can focus on and be successful at. So they've got hundreds and hundreds of great ideas, but they can't focus on the 2 or 3 or 4 that are going to drive a successful business. And you find a lot of unbelievably talented businesses that fail because of that. So to me, this is always a little bit of a balancing act. And I think if you can balance those two pieces, right? Allow people to be creative and innovative and solve problems, and do it in a unique and maybe unknown way to you, you can really drive your business forward. But also make sure you have a kind of a check and balance sometimes. Are things just getting too ethereal that you need to rein back in on are these really driving our business in the right direction? I think if you can balance those two things, your organization will be really successful. So the next question from my team here is, how do you cultivate resilience and lead your team through challenging times? This one's interesting, and I faced this as an entrepreneur. I faced this in my time in a large publicly traded company. Look, you're going to have a challenge thrown at you. You're going to run into tough times. I mean, not everything is easy. For me, what I try to do is just be consistent every day. I've had days where we've hit something out of the park, had a fantastic close with a new client, or performed exceedingly well with a client. And certainly you're excited for that win. But at the same time, you can't get blinded by that success, because around the next turn you could have something that comes back and kicks you in the kneecap. And so and you can't go through this roller coaster ride emotionally. At least I can't, of getting too high with the highs and too low with the lows. I think you have to bring in a mindset that you're going to have steady leadership, whether someone's winning or somebody is losing. And I think certainly if you can instill that in your team, and you can say, look, great win, but we've got to win again, and we've got to win again. We've got to find the next win. And oh, by the way, when you get a sucker punch to the gut, I'm here to pick you up, right? It's going to happen. And so, for me, I certainly want our team to work tirelessly and to try to achieve their goals. But if you're really trying to do something that's terribly difficult, you're going to fail at some point. If you're setting really hard stretch goals for yourself or for your team, inevitably you're going to miss one of those goals and you're going to fail. And so if you emotionally allow that to shut you down, you're going to go from striving for this almost impossible feat to failing and dive into depression or other things that will just eat at you. So work hard, strive for goals that are really difficult. But when you miss, understand why you missed, pick yourself back up and go set another hard goal. Because failure is part of the equation. Falling down is part of the equation. And the only thing we can do is understand what we've done wrong and make ourselves better the next time that we encounter that challenge. I would certainly take that any day of the week over somebody who's never trying to push themselves or get themselves out of a position of being comfortable. I've seen a lot of folks like that in my career as well, where they're never going to move outside of what makes them comfortable. And sadly, a lot of those folks get stuck where they are in their organization for decades. So go out there, try something new, raise your hand and take on a difficult task in your organization. Even if you fail, you're going to learn from it, and it'll make you a better person, a better employee, better leader, having raised your hand and failed than never having tried. So for me, that's how I preach resilient leadership. That's what worked for me, and certainly I hope that will work for you as well. So the next question from the team is really about safety, and it's how do you take a safety and lead with safety, and how as a leader do you view safety in our business? This is such an important topic for me. I mean, we operate in sometimes dangerous work environments, working all over the country, doing really critical asset infrastructure work, and we're deploying hundreds of people all over the country all the time. And so, I'd probably start by saying one of our core principles is make it safe, and maybe let me just talk about that a little bit. Fundamentally for us, everything we do is about making the assets and the structures we're inspecting safe for the people around them and safe for the owner of those assets. But you got to take that all the way back to the individual doing the work. I mean, we're deploying people that are driving millions and millions of miles, which there's inherent risk there. We're out inspecting in really difficult environments. And so as a leader, you've got to make certain that through your organization, people understand the risks, people have a heightened sense of what those risks are, and that people are paying attention and not getting complacent. I was just walking through our office the other day. We had some stuff hung on the wall recently, some images, and one of the corners was protruding, and it's a metal photo. And I told our guys, I said, look, we got to fix that. I mean, someone's going to catch their shoulder on it and cut themselves. And it's all those little things in life. And that's just a small example. I mean, there's certainly much bigger examples in both our organization and in our industry. But it's all those little details that can lead to an injury or lead to someone getting hurt. And this is probably the area that keeps me up most at night is how do we make certain that our team is safe, that they're properly trained, that they're not getting complacent, they're not just pencil whipping their task hazards and all those sorts of things every day. And because ultimately you do enough of those things, you're going to have an accident, you're going to have an incident, someone's going to get hurt in a serious way. And so you have to lead with safety every day. You have to engage in looking at the little things that look mundane, that can really hurt you every day. And that's not an easy thing to do. You got to take a step back sometimes from the busyness of your daily activities and say, hey, I can't put this ahead of safety, because if I put $1 ahead of safety, someone's going to get injured. If I push people to work too many hours, somebody's going to get injured. Those are all difficult decisions when you're trying to work efficiently and effectively and be good stewards of your client's money. You can get to a point where you're doing too much and you're going to put somebody in harm's way. So be thinking about that as a leader. I know I think about that every day. And then how do you connect with your team? I make sure that all of our senior staff goes out in the field and spends time with our field guys and engages with our field staff, interviews our field staff. How can I make your job better? How can I make your job safer? Are there any training gaps? You have to do those sorts of things because you'll quite often find out, oh, we were really missing something. And if you miss something for long enough, it's going to come back to bite you. And so please find a way to connect with your team, find a way to spend time with your team, and make sure you're not cutting corners around safety. So as I kind of walk through safety and safety leadership, I just want to take a moment to talk to a lot of our field staff listens to our podcast, and maybe just a moment to speak directly to them. I had the great fortune in starting my businesses. I spent a lot of time in a shop environment. I spent a lot of time out in the field inspecting and welding and doing all sorts of things. And I get how hard it is. I mean, at the end of a long day, you can say, hey, I'm going to push it a little harder. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I feel you. And please, if you ever feel like in our organization or in any organization you're in, you're heading down a path where someone's going to get hurt, understand people care about you. People at home care about you. Your friends and family care about you. Our organization cares about you, and I really care about you. So be a leader out there in the field. If you see something that's not right, we've had instances where a client's doing something terribly unsafe. Be a leader. You have stop work authority. If you're seeing someone in our organization not doing something safe, take a moment, stop, make it safe. That's why make it safe is our number one core principle as a business. But you have to practice that. It's not just something you stick on the wall. It's not just something you stick in a binder somewhere. You have to practice it. And the only way you can do that is through your individual leadership to say, hey, something's not right. Somebody's going to get hurt. We need to stop. And so please take a moment The last thing that I ever want to see, I think the last thing anyone ever wants to see is somebody get hurt. And so you've got to put those things in place to make certain that you come home in one piece and you come home to your loved ones, because that's certainly what we want. So I've shared some of my insights today on this podcast, and maybe they're unique to me, but they're probably not special. I can only imagine that everybody listening to this has had some of these similar challenges or similar questions of themselves. So I hope you glean something that maybe you could use in your organization or in your life to resolve a challenge or something that pops up for you. I'm certainly on this journey. I certainly understand that I've got a long way to go and continue to develop in my career and get better at being a leader. And I strive to do that every day. And I look forward to hearing from you all and the things that you struggle with. And I hope you're willing to be open and let some of those barriers down and express to people the things that maybe you're struggling with and that you're trying to resolve and you're working on. Because if you're not doing that, you're not getting better. And quite often as leaders, we feel like we've got to have this kind of pent up, tight facade that we wear. And that's usually not the best way to approach a situation, because if you're struggling with something, I guarantee you somebody else is. Let's shine some light on those things and let's have discussions about them, because we'll all learn from one another and all become better leaders. So thank you for your time.